we built this infrastructure of what is the pro-life safety net, and we created our 7 categories of care. We have over 100 different types of services within our 7 categories of care, and started inviting people into communities to be first in a directory that we've created. We are now at 7,000 listings across 29 states. The directory only further underscored how important it is to have life-affirming resources, and how many of us want to figure out, how can I get involved? What can I do to serve moms?
Sometimes the most ordinary moments spark the biggest stories. An editor hitting record, a quick conversation before the show, or a guest casually mentioning the work that's reshaping the pro-life safety net across America. Today's guest, Autumn Christensen, has spent decades on Capitol Hill, in the thick of federal policy, in the heart of the Dobbs era, and on the front lines where mothers and babies need support the most. She's seen the rise of abortion drugs, the shifting battles in the states, and the cultural message that tells women they're not strong enough to be mothers. And instead of accepting that narrative, she built something new. From crafting legislation to creating her plan, from federal advocacy to walking with moms day by day, Autumn has helped design a nationwide system of practical, compassionate support that proves that the pro-life movement has always believed women deserve better than abortion. And we will stand with them from the first moment they choose life and the very last mile of the journey. This is Living Pro-Life. Hey, thanks for listening to Living Pro-Life. Make sure to be part of the growing base of people making Coalition Life happen. And so we ask you today, please consider donating $1 for our One Life campaign. Your $1 can help build a culture of life. Your $1 can help save a baby from the tragedy of abortion. Your $1 can help women in need who need us more than ever. Consider donating $1 today, supporting our mission here at Coalition Life, and ultimately helping to end abortion throughout our great country. Now back to Living Pro-Life. Well, welcome, Autumn. I'm glad you're on the program. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you so much for inviting me.
Well, Autumn, you're doing so much great work through her plan. But before we get, run right into that, I know you got a great background in the pro-life movement, and there's always a story of how people get into the pro-life movement. So what's your story?
Yeah. It's interesting because I think everyone starts out pro-life. It's not until the culture sort of reprograms you to think differently about abortion. And I think back to, most all of my life, I've always cared about the dignity of unborn children and people in general. But I remember a moment when I was 6 years old and I was playing with my friends and I went over to ask my mom for something. And I overheard her telling her friend that she'd been asked to go search for a missing baby. And I paused and hid like a good little 6-year-old who wanted to eavesdrop on that story. So I paused behind the station wagon and started listening to the story. And what had happened was a college student at a nearby campus had become pregnant. She hid her pregnancy. Nobody knew that she was pregnant. She had baggy clothes and she's a little overweight. And so it wasn't obvious that that mom was pregnant. And when she went into labor, she found an empty room and she delivered that little baby. And I'm sure that that young woman didn't know how to, I don't know if the baby cried. But if she didn't, I'm sure she didn't know how to massage the baby or clear her airway. So what she did was she just threw the baby in the trash. Wow. And that baby in the trash really, really stuck with me. My mom had been an OB nurse, so she was asked to come. They knew something had happened, but nobody knew where the baby was. So a group of volunteers were searching, not knowing if the baby was dead or alive. Well, the mom had been taken to the hospital. And eventually they found the baby who had not survived. And, it's just a really sad moment. And even in that moment, I kept thinking about that mom and wondering how could she have been in a dorm and been so alone? how could she have, like, what a horrible experience for that mom. What was that like? And then, of course, the baby. I mean, that baby has always kind of been in the back of my mind. And so later, I was only 6 then, I learned about abortion, and it just seemed like there was no difference, right?
Yeah.
So it was always fundamental to me that we support moms, we support babies, that we save babies. And so when I got into public policy as my initial entry into the workforce, working on Capitol Hill, it was just natural for me to want to take on the pro-life portfolio. And then I had the opportunity to work for several members of Congress and eventually run the pro-life caucus in the House and work with members on all sorts of pro-life legislation. I got to be a part of fighting off funding for abortion and working on bills like the Partial Birth Abortion Ban Act and the Born Alive Act, and really got to pour my life into that, both on the Hill and then as a lobbyist for SBA Pro-Life America. And from that, have gotten a chance to work and do the things we're doing with her plan.
Well, Autumn, you skipped a few things. You're like, all of a sudden you're 6, 7 years old, and then you're working in Washington. So you skipped the part there. So how does one go from that experience to working in Washington?
Yeah, it's a great question. I just could not stop being drawn into public policy work. So I think at one point in high school, I worked on a campaign for governor, and then I decided I needed to be a doctor. Because I just wanted to help people as a doctor. And then I realized that I'm not so great at chemistry and math. And so that probably wasn't going to work out. And then honestly, after I graduated college, right around the time of 9/11, I really thought about what did I want my life to look like. And at that time I was living in Chattanooga and I had friends in Washington, D.C. And I just up and decided to move to D.C. and wander around Capitol Hill looking for a job. Sometimes I call DC, and I think other people use this phrase too. It's kind of like Hollywood for ugly people. You come wait. No. Yeah, you wait tables at night and look for a job in politics. So, I was drawn to Capitol Hill. And so I got into this public policy work and just could never set aside the abortion portfolio. I just always wanted to be working on that issue.
Well, Autumn, I'll tell you what, for those who are only listening, I don't know that would qualify as being ugly, Autumn. So
that's kind.
Well, Autumn, you're doing such great work there at Her Plan as their executive director. But tell me some things you found out in Washington. I know there's been a lot of talk post-Dobbs about these abortion drugs, these so-called chemical abortions that are now mailed around the country. What does that look like from a Washington perspective?
Yeah, that has probably been the most heartbreaking narrative of the 20 years that I've been working in Washington, D.C. The rise of the abortion drug has changed the entire landscape and made it even harder for moms to choose life. When I think back to that story I told you about when I was 6 years old and the college student, I think what breaks my heart the most is that today her story probably would have been a little bit different, but in a worse way. So today she could have just made a few clicks on her phone and received an abortion drug and had an abortion, probably seen her baby, flushed the toilet, and nobody would have known the experience that she went through. And she wouldn't have gotten help. And she wouldn't have gotten support. And even worse, she may have gotten pressure. A woman today may be being pressured to have an abortion by her boyfriend who has abortion drugs sitting in his sock drawer. Or the girl down the hall who has abortion drugs that she just passes out like Tylenol. And so for a mom who is already believing that she is a burden, but she can't be a good enough mom, and that she just can't figure out what to do, she now has access to drugs that are going to change her life forever and snuff away the life of her baby and all of the future opportunity that goes along with that baby in just a moment. And so it makes our job as pro-lifers even harder, but it also gives us even greater opportunity. Because now with abortion drugs sitting in medicine cabinets and in sock drawers and easily changed through the mail, we now have a call on ourselves to be there for her every day of her pregnancy.
Yeah.
Because see, if she decides for life today, but tomorrow her car breaks down and the next day she gets an eviction notice, we have to still be there with her through those things, or she'll go back to that thinking that the world has told her, which is that she is not good enough, that she needs to have an abortion because she's too poor, or she's too uneducated, or she's too mentally unstable. So we have to have that relationship with her while she's searching for the abortion and after she makes a decision for life. And a lot of times her needs, she didn't just make up that she wanted to have an abortion. No little girl wakes up in the morning and says, when I grow up, I'm going to have an abortion. You know, she heard a message from every pillar of culture and that message that she heard was, you're not good enough. In fact, the wise decision would be to have an abortion. That's what Hollywood says. That's what the academic elites say. You need to have an abortion. That's the wise decision because then you won't be a burden. So our job is to tell her she's not a burden and we're there for her. And that dignity that we believe in regarding her unborn child, we also believe about her. She is also made in the image of God and deserving of our care and support. But the work is hard. And those are the kinds of things that really drove me towards this next chapter of my life working on her plan.
A lot of people say, well, you only care about the baby and you don't care about the mom, and you certainly don't care about the father or anybody else involved in this.
That's right.
It's just like, as soon as the baby's born, then you guys are out for some reason. So is that true?
Yeah. Yeah. And it's just not true. It's not my lived experience. My experience has been in communities of faith that we always want to be there for moms in need. In fact, that is what scripture teaches us, is to love the poor, love the vulnerable, to serve them. But you know what? That's what I heard all the time on Capitol Hill. You guys don't care about the baby after they're born. Well, at the same time that the left was saying we don't care about the baby after they're born, or we're not there to help the mom, at the same time, they were trying to shut down pregnancy centers, doing reports, trying to talk about how pregnancy centers shouldn't be in business. Well, the work of a pregnancy center and maternity homes is to actually be there for her. So, but that message really, really enraged me as I worked on Capitol Hill, and is another big motivator for what we do. And then again, too, that narrative right under the surface that abortion is a necessary evil. No. We need to make, you've heard the phrase, we don't just want to make abortion illegal, we want to make it unthinkable. And her plan's a big part of that.
So let's spend a little bit of time on that. Could anything be a so-called necessary evil? Like I think it's either good or evil. Like you're either killing a baby or not. Right. And see, the thing is, the alternatives are so readily available. So tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah. We think that there's an easy fix, or maybe some in our culture think that abortion is an easy fix, but it's actually not an easy fix at all. Like you said, it is clearly evil. The baby is lost and the mom suffers. So it's all around just leaving people in a cycle of poverty and despair. So keep in mind that 50% of women who have an abortion are at 100% of poverty or less. Another 25% are between 100% and 200% of poverty. So the opportunity to serve her needs are really great. And so what we did when we started her plan, Marjorie, our president at SBA Pro-Life America, got us together and she said, what, as we look towards a post-Roe, post-Dobbs world, what does that look like? And we started talking about what would that look like and how can we build the supports for that? And at the very same time, I came to know about a woman, I'll protect her name, but I'll call her Maria. And this woman was living in her car. She had children in foster care. She was pregnant. She was battling addiction. And her boyfriend, who she cared very much about, could become violent. So that's a pretty long list of challenges.
Yeah.
That's the woman that all those people on Capitol Hill on the pro-choice side of things would say she needs an abortion. And of course, an abortion would put her right back in that car and right back in those circumstances. Right. And so Maria's story really touched me. And as Marjorie and I were talking, we started talking about what is the pro-life safety net? And the pregnancy centers and maternity homes out there are the first line of defense. They do incredible work. But to that point that I was making earlier, when we need to be there for the day that she decides for life and then every day afterwards, we need all the charities in our communities. When I grew up, I grew up helping at a food pantry and going to a maternity home. And, our church was doing all sorts of things. Every charity and ministry that is there to help people who are facing poverty or who are facing addiction or facing any of these challenges that can be triggers for abortion, all of those ministries are part of the pro-life safety net. And so we built this infrastructure of what is the pro-life safety net. And that was based on research into reasons women identified for seeking an abortion. And we created our 7 categories of care, which encompass everything from healthcare to pregnancy centers to child care to education and workforce development, and started inviting people into communities to be first in a directory that we've created. To find resources. And I'm so proud of that directory. We are now at 7,000 listings across 29 states.
Wow. So you mentioned 7,000, just kind of rolls right off the tongue. Yeah. But one of your individuals, one of your staffers came and actually physically put feet on the ground and walked around our center, got to know our team, said, what does it mean to be part of the directory, so on and so forth. Yeah. And I was very impressed by that. It wasn't just a phone call or even just a Google search. Mm-hmm. It was a intentional interview to figure out what we provide, what we don't provide, and where we want to go. So kudos to you and her plan for sure.
One of the things I am most proud of is one of the things that makes our work most frustrating on a day-to-day basis. And that is that we do not just Google and list potential resources. We vet every single resource. We have over 100 different types of services within our 7 categories of care that each have their own unique qualification process. So we ask every listing to affirm that they're not going to refer for abortion. We make sure that they have proper insurance and make sure that they have proper background checks in place. And then depending on what kind of care they offer, it might be making sure their licenses are current, or it might be making sure that their qualifications are appropriate to serve that vulnerable mom. So it's frustrating to our team because we can't just listings left, right, and center, because we really do the diligence of vetting our listings, but moms deserve that. And so that's really important to me. 100%. It's something that's been a central part of what we do.
So there was, just as a similar example, here in the general St. Louis area, we were referring some of our clients to a housing. It wasn't a maternity home, but it was a housing project, if you will. And so we went and visited them to vet them. And sure enough, because we were already referring clients there, sure enough, on the front desk was a bowl of condoms and a brochure for Planned Parenthood right next to it. Yeah. And I'm just thinking to myself, well, that's a revolving door, right?
Yeah. I sometimes say it's, if you refer someone to a social service that is not pro-life, then it's kind of like, and this is a little bit of a bold example, but I will share it. It's kind of like if you were to take someone newly in addiction recovery and suggest they participate in a workforce development program at a local liquor store.
Yeah.
No, that's insane.
Right.
But here's the thing. Resources are few and far apart. And it is hard to find enough resources. So our job as pro-lifers is to step in and say, where can I build in pro-life, life-affirming resources? So she doesn't have to go to that place that's just going to turn around and tell her, yeah, you should go. Just reaffirm all those fears that she had. You should have an abortion. You can't do better. You'll be better off having an abortion. Those are the voices that run her head when she walked into your center. Yeah. So, of course, if she hears it again, that's going to just settle into the nooks and crannies of her brain, which is why we have to be there after that point of decision and every step of the way to delivery and afterwards so she can parent successfully.
So her plan, of course, is a directory, yet it's not just a directory. There's other things. Right. So tell us about the other things her plan is doing.
Yeah. So we started out with our directory in part because we started right about 2 months before COVID. So y'all remember what happened.
Right.
We wanted to work in communities and we suddenly couldn't book a restaurant. We couldn't, go out and set up a hotel banquet hall to have community level conversations. So we really leaned into our directory. And then as things started to open up, the directory only further underscored how important it is to have life affirming resources and how many of us want to figure out, how can I get involved? What can I do to serve moms? And just saying go out and serve moms is really overwhelming. So we have now placed state coordinators in 10 states, and we are looking to, in each of those states, for communities that want to become her community. And we work at that community level, maybe 50,000, 100,000 people in a geographic area. And we bring people together and we talk to people who are providing referrals. And we find out, what are those referrals they can never make? Let's talk about what it is that we could do to start solving these problems in your community at the local level. Because here's the thing, she doesn't just need a service. She also needs a new circle of relationships. Yeah. So it can't just be a federal program. Those are useful at times. It can't just be a national program like ours all by ourselves. We're happy to provide the support, but we want the support to be local in nature so that the community that comes around her are her neighbors. So how can people become her neighbors? So that is really where we've put a lot of our emphasis. We continue to grow our directory. But there are just we've had over 400 actions taken by communities to reach out and find new ways to serve moms. And those can be as simple sometimes as forming a program to bring meals to moms after they deliver, who are clients at a pregnancy center. But some are even more involved. Like, for example, if you don't have a car to get to work and to get to daycare, everything spirals out of control. So one of my favorites that we do, and I just get so excited, is these car maintenance days. Because there is nothing more fun than watching some burly mechanic get out there and give free oil changes to single moms who have been probably let down by a lot of men in their life, get those oil changes. And sometimes it's new tires and fixing their car as well, and keeping their wheels moving. And at the same time, at our maintenance days, we will sometimes have people doing hair or face painting for the kids, just loving on those families. And then there's others like even maternity homes opening and things like that that are just really exciting that come out of our work in states.
Incredible. Again, we're talking with Autumn Christensen. They're at Her Plan. We're so glad that you are on the program. Let's talk a little political here. I'm sure you have 1,000 opinions about politics.
Yeah.
So forever, for about 50 years plus, there was this thing called Roe versus Wade. That was the so-called law of the land, or at least the other side just loved to throw that in our faces. Yeah. And of course, the Dobbs decision happens. And now the rhetoric is, oh, well, it's just a state's issue. And so there's kind of there's two sides of the coin. There's the pro-lifers who say, yay, we won. Right. And then there's others who say, well, look, the Dobbs decision didn't give us what we want. And then there's others who are saying, look, wait, it wasn't just sent down to the state. So tell us about that confusion and maybe help us, put a little bit more of a bow on this whole thing's called the Dobbs decision.
Yeah, it was a confusing moment because we rightfully celebrated the scourge of Roe. Like, Roe not only imposed abortion on all 50 states, but it also sent a cultural message of really systemic abortion, that abortion was the right answer. So overturning Roe was critical, and it opened up the opportunity for a lot of states, almost half the states, to enact pro-life laws and put those into place. But right on the heels of Dobbs, you have abortion drugs, like we've already talked about, flowing into states. And then you have, sometimes some people who would like to say, well, this is really just a state's issue now. States should get to decide. But here's the thing. It's never a state's issue about who gets to decide. It should never be up to states who lives and who dies. One thing that we should be able to agree with is that the federal government has a responsibility to ensure the most basic human right of every American, which is the right to life. So the Dobbs decision did not say back to the states. It doesn't say that in the Dobbs decision. It says it goes back to the elected officials, the people that you and I get to vote for. And whether you like it or not, whether you like Congress or not, we elected them. And turns out they are elected officials, and it is their duty to pass legislation to protect unborn children in every state. Right now, we're looking at 1.1 million abortions every year. And that doesn't even include all of the underground abortions with illegal abortion drugs. There has been such a push. Gavin Newsom put billboards in states like Mississippi and South Dakota saying, come here for an abortion. They're putting money into funds to pay for other abortions. In Maryland, they've announced they're going to take money from Obamacare and use it to pay for West Virginia abortions. The obsession with abortion is never going to back down. So we can never give up on this effort, both on the side of being there for the moms in our own communities and on the side of passing legislation. And federal protections should just be a basic requirement for anybody running for Congress or any elected office.
Well, in the post-Dobbs world, there are people who are fighting really diligently in the states because it's not, just a federal and it's not just a state issue, but it's a broad issue across the board. And so tell us about some of the things that are happening at the state level, some of these ballot initiatives, some of the positives and negatives. Tell us about some of that.
Yeah, well, I think what we've seen in a number of states is a lot of fear mongering about abortion. Again, that issue of abortion being treated like a necessary evil. So they will say, wow, women need to have an abortion. Look at these stories in Georgia. You might remember there were a couple of news articles that came out in the last election cycle about women who died as a result of abortion drugs in Georgia. The answer to that is not legal abortion. The answer to that is for them to have the help and support that they need and to not have gotten the drug in the first place. So there is, Missouri is one of the major places where there is a ballot initiative. Y'all just came close. You were one of the closest, other than the states that had some other benefits, like Florida had a 60 vote threshold, but Missouri came so close to defeating that ballot initiative. But, average Americans are just hearing all that fear mongering and they don't quite know what to do. And so they passed a anti-life ballot initiative. But now it's time to turn that around. And we're going to turn this whole message around after Dobbs. A couple years out, we're going to turn the message around both in our person-to-person relationships, doing things like what we do at Her Plan, and through just full-throated political outreach and education.
Well, as a Missourian, we fought like no tomorrow to beat the 2024 Amendment 3. And sure enough, by just sheer luck, the 2026 amendment is also called Amendment 3. So we went from vote no to now clearly vote yes, which will do so much to restore protections for women and certainly restore protections for minors. It also goes so far as to make sure that minors no longer have to be succumb to these sex change operations, so-called hormone therapies and whatnot, and prevent basically the medical establishment from mistreating these children and basically sterilizing them for the rest of their lives. So for those who want to get involved with Her Plan or the work of Susan B. Anthony, tell us how they can get involved.
Yeah, well, I would love to invite any of your listeners to join us at Her Plan. Go to herplan.org/helpthemboth. And you'll find some really practical opportunities to sign up to be a part of challenges in your community to help women and really just come around them with support. Like I said, it could be really simple things to start, and then we look forward to doing even bigger things in the future. So go to herplan.org/helpthemboth and sign up to be a part of what we're doing at Her Plan. Follow us on Instagram. I'd love for you to get to hear what Abigail on our Instagram account has to say on a regular basis about how we can empower and support moms and help them make decisions for life and then help them sustain those decisions for life. So I'm really excited about what we have coming up. I will say, I want to tell your listeners about one woman who really put into practice exactly what we believe in at Her Plan. So she found us on social media, and she saw our posts, and God was moving in her heart that she wanted to do more for moms, and she lived in West Virginia. And so one day she thought, what I'd really like to do is figure out how I can help moms in my community. And so she got together with some of our team, and they realized that there was a 5-county area in West Virginia with no pregnancy center. And this lady happened to be a nurse. And she realized that she could open a pregnancy center with an ultrasound and serve women in this 5-county radius. And so she got together with our team and they came up with a plan and they found some property and the community came in. Somebody donated the floors. People came in and painted. They put together this pregnancy center, secured funds for an ultrasound. And guess what? She and other volunteers in their community are providing support to moms in the New River Gorge in West Virginia that wasn't there just a year ago. So you can really do amazing things for moms, and we want to help you find your place. We like to say we want you to find your place in the pro-life safety net. So figure out what it is God put on your heart. You could be a burly mechanic, or you could be a nurse ready to start a pregnancy center, or you could be someone who cooks really good meals and wants to give them to moms. So I just invite people to join us in that work.
Incredible work, and thanks for being on the program, Autumn. There with Her Plan. Thank you for all of your work.
Well, thank you. I really appreciate it. This was really great. Have a great day.